Right, so here's what we're up to today. I've got the subframe mounted on a piece of wood. It's screwed down, solid, bigger piece of wood underneath, keeping it all rigid. I've drilled a position for the bottom ball joint with a bolt that's snug in it, so that drops down. All the suspension I'm going to make is adjustable, fore and aft, in and out. So this position is just to mark the original position where it was on the on this particular car, on this side. So I'm going to start with that. So mark that. I've drawn around the existing suspension and I've roughly plotted where I reckon I want my arms, new arms, to fall and land. So what I can do now, obviously this is fixed position, this is the only bit that was a variable, so I'm going to remove this, take the whole this side suspension off to give us some space. We're then going to make some CAD cardboard aided design brackets to fit here, templates, and then I'm going to test it by making the brackets out of very thin steel that's cheap that I've got, just tacking them super lightly in place so they can be removed in 30 seconds. But yeah, just testing, proof of concept, and seeing where we're at before moving into heavier gauge proper steel. So first up, let's get this all removed and start from there. So we've got the suspension unbolted and removed, and now we're going to take measurements. Got a set square, set it up 60mm forward of this point, just as a reference. I can mark it so I actually can keep that in mind. I've got another line here which I've measured 40mm from this point, just to give me another reference, and then we're going to make the templates. So these lines here on the inside, can you see those? Hopefully that's a bit better. Yeah. So then I measured these two lines 40mm apart, where the rose joint, the hind joint, is going to sit bang centre on there, and then we can get our adjustment. So time to make some measurements. I'll be able to make it for the front. Perfect. Right. So there's a front mount for it. And then if I do the same again, I can actually make the rear mount as well. There we go. And I can also do so that's going to sit there, little gusset in there, and you can start to see the idea. So what I can do is now mark where I'm going to put my mounting points and check those. We can drill them, and then we can make these out of flimsy steel and just see how we look. Right, I'm happy. So what we're going to do is transfer these onto steel, and then we'll make them in steel. So from these cardboard templates, I'm now going to transfer it into steel. So this is cheap, crappy steel from B&Q. It's actually galvanised, which is not a good idea. But I'll cut it wearing and weld it wearing a mask. What we're going to do is centre pop them on the holes where I mark the bolts up, and then we're going to drill them first of all with 5mm, then we'll step it up to a big drill.
So what I'm doing here is just a quick check to make sure they all fit, line up and sit where I want them before I then drill the bigger hole, which is a M14 14mm hole straight through them so I can line them all up.
So those holes are drilled. So what I'm going to do now is just set up the bolt, the plates, so they're 40mm apart. This one is like that. So I think now I've done that, so let's have a show you around. Right. So this is how they fit inside. So they're lying level with the bottom of the subframe. I'll put a gusset from here across to the front to brace it. It's already braced there. We're going to make these out of, I think, 60mm. I think it needs to be 60mm plate. Spaced it to 40mm. So this gives it a little angle backwards in the correct direction to where we want to be. So subframe, we'll zoom out. Yep, the subframe original mounting point is here. So that's pretty good. And then we're going to make the other mounting here, also 30mm higher into there. So then straight out and away we go. So this one, if it looks high, it's because it is 30mm higher than the original mounting point. So basically these ones, I think the standards sit at 32mm off the deck of the subframe. So now we're at 62mm up, which should level all the arms out. Yeah, so next I'm gonna, now I've made these and I'm happy the bolt goes through and it all lines up as it should, I'm gonna clean everything up and we'll tack these in place. Yeah, and they're gonna be literally, I'm just gonna spot tack it as lightly as humanly possible, and yeah, then we can move on to the rear mount and see how that sits. Right, all set up, so we just need to tack it into place now. Nice and quick. Right, so that's tacked into place. So now what I can do is just, I can take these washers out and then replace them with the rose joint.
Then it's onto the back mount, and the same as the front, measuring up. I'm going to make some cardboard templates, so then I can make them in steel and test all the functions.
I made one, but I think what I'm going to do is just extend this one out a little bit, another centimetre. Make it 60, make it 50. Goes like that. So let's keep cracking on. So we're going to just adjust this cardboard template so it's the right size for what I'm happy with, and then we can make those out of the rubbish steel, and I can tack those in as well and see how we are looking. Right, so now we've got the plates drilled. I've drilled out the back of the subframe a little bit as well so the threads can stick through. What I'm going to do is drill it out fully so a cap head bolt can go in, or a socket and nut can go in, or I'll weld the captive nut on. Either way, I've not decided on that yet, but like three options easily, and probably a dozen more. Go like that, washers and that. So that's going to be how that's going to sit. So then what you can see is we've got the back plate in, which is going to be made of thicker steel, obviously. If I show you actually what I'm showing you. Then we've got the vertical plate here, which again is going to be thicker steel. You can brace from the top across to this section, get good welds all the way around it, and make it super strong. This bit the same, I can weld a gusset or a little piece in there to make sure that's good. As you can see, the bolt comes out of the back at the moment. What we'll do is enlarge this hole, so then we can either put the bolt in from that direction or just have the threads and a captive nut coming through, if that makes sense. So it's all pretty straightforward. So I can weld that in and get the next rose joint in place. There we go. Cool. Right. The next thing we're going to do is I need to, can you see, I'm going to trim out from here to here. We'll remove that, which then gives the rose joint and the end full. Actually, we're going to go more, probably go to there. So, which will then mean this joint can come all the way up no danger of hitting. This joint is going to go approximately here. Right, so making the rose joints. So here's where I left it off. Rose joints bolted on, temporary brackets made and for checking, and then my steel has now arrived. So I've got some 30mm OD tube, CDS, 3.6mm wall, so it's pretty stout, very stout actually, quite heavy. And the rose joint and the insert literally slot into the end super nicely. So we're going to start fabricating these wishbones. Very good. Right. So prep those for welding. Just take the grinder and put an angle on them. So everything's cleaned up. So hopefully, and I've put a little bevel on everything. Right. So next job I've got to do is scallop this into here. So I'm just measuring the centre line of the tube, and that helps me get my markings correct, so I can grind out the scallop or the cope as easy as possible and keep it symmetrical on the tube. So centre of the tube, the front. Then basically just measuring from the end of the square tube to the round tube where it contacts, and that's the distance I need to cut out to make it cope in properly. There's loads of videos on YouTube of how to cope tubes without a tube notcher. It's pretty simple to do when you get the hang of it. And once it's all marked out, you just whip out the grinder and cut around your markings, and then grind it into the correct shape you want. And once you've got it ground again, you then check your fitment and make sure you're happy. And it's at this point I decided, I was staring at it and looking at it and just thinking I can do this a bit different. So I actually changed my mind and went for a different orientation. So the rear bar of the wishbone, I decided to go straight out of one rose joint to the other rose joint, and this basically means I'm one tube less than I would be, and less joints, less welding, so hopefully a stronger joint all in all. Right, so I've decided to go for a little bit of a rethink. So I wasn't happy with having these tubes and then having a piece join onto here on both ends. I felt it left a weak area. These ends were going to be super short and the angle's super steep, and I just wasn't happy with it. So what I've done is I've broken this bracket off here, so this is held on by one. I'm going to run this front section of the arm now more straight out. It's still in board of where it was on the original Mini arm, so for the turning radius and everything, no problem. This arm is coming on an angle but is on one tube now. The reason I wanted to put this one squarer is so that I can adjust it with shims a lot easier to get fore and aft on the for caster adjustment. If I put it on an angle and had this one on an angle as well, when you adjusted it, everything had changed geometry and I wasn't happy with that. So I've just simplified it a lot more. So now I reused the tube that I was going to make here. I'm going to have a tube coming from here to here now. Then we'll trim this one in square and we'll see how that goes. So next up we'll make that one and see where we're at.
So again, back at it, measure up again, decide where I'm going with the tubes, and then just cope them, notch them in, and make it all work. And more grinding and notching of tubes. It's a lot of that in this project. Been burning through the grinding discs and making a lot of dust in my workshop. And then once I'm happy with the tubes, I'm on to welding it up. So I just put a tack on each end, then I remove the rose joints, so I'm not putting any heat into those, just to protect them. Fully welding around, because once I put the next bit of material over the top, next bit of tube, I obviously can't weld underneath there, so. And as you can see, diagonal bar going in, fiddly on my own, but there you get it done, and then tack it in, check everything, make sure it's all where you want it to be before fully welding it home.
Right then, so wishbone's finished. I forgot to press record when I added this bar. So wishbone's done. It's super strong. It's super heavy. Not super heavy. I'll weigh it compared to the old setup once it's all done and see how if we've added or lost weight. But as you can see, the tubing I've used is super beefy stuff. It's way over the top. The rose joints I've used are super beefy. everything I've used is over the top for the job. Should be over the top for the job. The reason for that is basically I had a rose joint fail on the kit car, and it's pretty scary when they fail. It's not the most fun you can have on a track day. So these are M14s, like I've said before, but they're just another size up, stronger, and also they're expensive, or more expensive rose joints. So I think these ones are costing me, I think I paid 25 or 35 pounds each. Anyway, they're more expensive, but they're higher grade, just better quality. Obviously when I've been doing the welding, they've been not in the piece at all, other than just for little tacks, and then take them straight out and welded it all up. So yeah, that's the wishbone done for as much as it needs to be at the moment. So get that out of the way. Next up, what we need to do is, so we need to work on the subframe, so for the top mounts. So right here I've got a little 5mm drill hole, front and back, which is 30mm higher than the standard. I'm going to block off this hole, I think slice through here, drill out these spot welds and remove that material, and then plug that, and then we're going to re-drill this to make a spacer and adapter. We're also going to do the rear of the subframe, so I can then make the adapter for the back and put the pin through. So that's the next stage for us.
And I think that's where I'm going to leave it, because I'm about out of time on this. But on the next episode, I'll show you making the pins, putting it all together, so we've got a fully completed subframe that we can then test the geometry and make sure this is all going to work as I want it to. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.